School starts next Monday. I enrolled in a cybersecurity associate's degree program, but before I start documenting that, I wanted to make a video talking about why I'm doing this. Because the career pivot explanation is one thing, but there are two other stories underneath it, and I think they're both worth telling. The conventional wisdom on breaking into cybersecurity is pretty straightforward. Get your security plus, get your foot in the door in IT, build a portfolio. Don't spend 2 years in a classroom when you can stack certs that employers are actually looking for. That argument isn't wrong. For a lot of people, it makes sense. But I already have a career, 5 years as a software engineer. I know how to learn fast and on my own. I'm not going back to school because I'm out of options. Two things in this video: the real reason why I'm pivoting now, and why I chose school over certs. Recently, something started happening at work that I just couldn't ignore. I was using AI more and more to generate code, and eventually it got to a point where I was generating code that I didn't fully understand. It made me kind of uncomfortable. I'd ship something, it would work, and then I'd move on. But if somebody asked me to explain it line by line, I would have struggled. The AI was going faster than my understanding could keep up. I don't think this is entirely an AI problem. Part of it is just the nature of more complex work. But AI made it easier to avoid the gap, and I noticed that I was avoiding it too. That scared me. Not in a dramatic way, but in a persistent, quiet way that kept showing up. So I started asking, what kind of work actually forces you to understand systems? Not just how to use them, but understand how they break, how assumptions fail, what happens when someone does something that the designer never intended. Security kept being the answer, offensive security especially. You can't exploit something that you don't understand. You can't find the vulnerability if you don't understand what working correctly means on a lower level. That's why cybersecurity. That's why now. Not because the market's hot, but because I needed to close a gap that I had been quietly ignoring. Now, that's the practical answer, but it's not the whole story. I spent 7 years trying to finish college between 2010 and 2017. Part-time, full-time, gap semesters, changed majors. A lot of personal stuff got in the way. Mental health struggles that took a long time to identify and an even longer time to manage. I wasn't in a position to finish, but I kept trying anyway, and I kept not finishing. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, my grandmother asked me on her deathbed to commit to going to school. I've thought about that a lot over the years. After I left college for the last time, I kept working in bars and restaurants. That was my life until 2020, when the pandemic shut everything down. I moved back in with my family, and in that stillness, I enrolled in a coding bootcamp, learned back-end engineering, and eventually got my first developer job. That completely changed the direction of my life. In some ways, I think I honored what my grandmother asked. I took my education seriously and I built something out of it. But I don't think she knew what a coding bootcamp was. And I think about that sometimes. The more grown-up version of me, almost 10 years later, wants to go back and finish something. I just want to prove to myself that I can. That the version of me who kept not finishing back then is not the same version sitting here right now. So that's why school and not just certs. Classes start next Monday. I genuinely don't know what it's going to be like balancing a full-time engineering job with coursework on nights and weekends. That's what this series is going to be about. Episode 0 was the big announcement. This was the 2 reasons underneath it. Episode 1 is when it actually starts. If you want to follow that in real time, subscribe. I'll see you after the first week.